namwaki
Anawai bonde
ere yonga yere namwaki
Anawai
depo sopina yima wana depo te humwaki
Anawai
depo na tayalta wana depo te humwaki
Anawai
depo ngala jeuka wana depo te humwaki
Anawai
depo ngemu wana depo te humwaki
Anawai
depo ngaru wana depo te humwaki
Anawai
depo puti na gite wana depo te humwaki
Anawai
depo mugite keudo wana depo te humwaki
Anawai
depo mutundi keudo wana depo te humwaki
Anawai bonde
ere yonga yere damjam
Anawai bonde
ere yonga yere damwaki
Anawai
depo ngala keudo wana depo te humwaki
Anawai bonde
ere yonga yere damwaki
Anawai bonde
ere yonga yere damwaki
Anawai
jam
Them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose. So the Bible says, and it still is news. Your mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own. That's got his own. Yes, the strong gets more, while the weak ones fade. Empty pockets don't ever make the grave. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own. That's got his own. Money, you got lots of friends hanging around your door. When it's gone, spending it, they don't come around no more. Rich relations give a crust of bread and such. Go on and help yourself there, but don't take too much. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own. That's got his own. Oh yeah.
Hello, I am Viera Whye, the Artistic Director for Tabia African American Theater Ensemble and the San Jose Multicultural Artists Guild. I can't believe we are 2 months into 2021. What a wild ride we have all been on in the world this past year. Welcome to Tabia African American Theater Ensemble's performance of From the Eyes of Mary McLeod Bethune, written by Sharon Moore and her Shibuya Middle School students here in San Jose in 2004. Our first production of this show was at Emmanuel Baptist Church in 2005. The show guides us through Mrs. Bethune's fictional narration as she introduces us to prominent Black figures heroes and sheroes throughout history. We celebrate and honor our ancestors, historical and modern day leaders, which hopefully includes each of you. We all have a role to play in being leaders and voices in our communities for justice, equity, and peace. Tabia celebrated its 35th anniversary in 2020, and I am so proud. And we march on in our quest to tell stories that educate and entertain and enlighten folks about African ancestry and African American culture and contributions. Thank you for joining us this evening. We hope you enjoy the show and that you reflect on the wonder of our people, the tenacity, the courage, the resilience, the perseverance, and speak the names of these amazing leaders, educators, and artists portrayed in this story. Thanks to our sponsors, donors, supporters, patrons, volunteers, and friends. We couldn't do it without you. You are indeed a blessing. We give a special call out to the National Council of Negro Women Silicon Valley Chapter, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Silicon Valley Chapter, Alpha Kappa Alpha Eta Rho Omega Chapter, and all of my sorority sisters of AKA. Thank you for your continued support, and my Link sisters. My best wishes to all of you and your families. May our hope spring eternal. Stay well, wear a mask, and we hope to see you live at the theater real soon. This production is dedicated to the loving memory of our longtime resident director and friend, Charles Buddy Butler. Buddy, we are going to miss you so very much. We love you. We thank you for the many years we had together of doing wonderful art and wonderful work. Rest in peace, our heavenly friend. Here's to you, buddy. We'll miss you. I now present to you From the Eyes of Mary McLeod Bethune. Listen, learn, and lift up praises for those who made a way out of no way for the rest of us. And I will need to ask you to please go to our website, sjmag.org. That's for San Jose Multicultural Artists Guild, sjmag.org, and make a donation so that we can continue to bring these performances to you, that we will have a voice in the community that celebrates our history and our contributions. Thank you and enjoy the show.
My name is Mary McLeod Bethune, and I was born in Maysville, South Carolina on July 10th, 1875, during the last 2 years of Reconstruction. I was the 15th of 17 children. Now, all my sisters and brothers were sold into slavery, but my parents were able to keep track of their whereabouts through a secret slave network that sent messages from plantation to plantation. Mama never did let us forget where we came from. She tells stories of how the captains of slave ships made a point of not putting slaves from the same tribe together for fear of an uprising. Nevertheless, slaves were still able to communicate through the drums. Even when the drums were outlawed, slaves would use their feet to tap out a message. Oh, the drums of Africa still beat in my heart. They will not let me rest. Perhaps that is why I thrive for knowledge. Those before me, like Sojourner Truth, Harriet Jacobs, Harriet Tubman, Ida B. Wells, and Frederick Douglass, had unlocked the front door. Mama said, all we needed to do is just open it and walk right on through. Oh, how my mama loved Sojourner, that tall, outspoken advocate of women's rights who was born a slave, yet died a legend.
Where there's so much racket, something must be out of kilter. And I think it's twisted Negroes in the South and the women of the North, all talking about racks. White man's gonna be in a fix pretty soon. But what's all this here talking about? That man over there, he says women need to be helped in the carriages and lifted over the mud puddles and given the best places everywhere. Ain't nobody ever lifted me into no carriage or helped me over the mud puddles or given me the best places everywhere. Ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered in the barn, and could no man get ahead of me. Ain't I a woman? I can work and eat as much as a man can when I can get it, and better lashes wear. Ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all my children sold off into slavery. And when I cried in my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. Ain't I a woman? Then there's this talk about this thing in the head. What's it they call it?
Intellect.
That's it, honey. Intellect. Now, what's that got to do with the rights of women? It seems to me, if my cup only holds a pint full and yours hold a quart, wouldn't it be mean not to let me have my half measure full? Then that little man over there in the black, he said women can't have as much rights as men because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man ain't had nothing to do with it. It seems to me, if the first woman God ever made could turn the world upside down all alone, then these women together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. And now they's asking to do it. And the men better let them. Well, much obliged to you for listening to me, but that's all Sojourner's got to say.
In 1813, a slave born in North Carolina named Harriet Ann Jacobs actually learned to read and write. After years in slavery, she escaped to the North and eventually entered into public.
My name is Harriet Ann Jacobs. I was born a mulatto slave in Edenton, North Carolina in 1813. I learned to read and write at a very young age, but by age 11, like most mulatto slave girls working in the master's house, I was sexually, physically, and mentally abused by my would-be master. But at age 22, with 2 young children and determined to escape my master's torment, I hid myself in the garret, a small crawl space above my grandmother's storeroom. Now I hardly expect that you will credit me when I tell you that I lived in that dismal hole, deprived of light and air, with no space to move my limbs for nearly 7 years. My den was 3 feet high by 9 feet long. It is a fact, and a sad one for me, for my body still suffers from that long imprisonment, to say nothing of my soul. From my perch, I watched my children grow up through a small peephole while I waited for my chance at freedom. My chance came on a cold winter's night in 1842 via the Maritime Underground Railroad. I shall never forget that night. 10 days later, arriving in Philadelphia, I saw the sunrise for the first time in my life on free soil. I watched the great circle come up out of the water, and the waves began to sparkle, and then everything caught that beautiful glow. My eyes began to moisten at the sight of freedom rising. I had escaped slavery. I had escaped slavery. But with the fugitive slave law enacted, my would-be master dogged my every footstep. I gained my freedom in 1850 and confronted the cruel realities of slavery with the writing of my autobiography, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. It was the first female antebellum slave narrative and broke the silence for enslaved Black women and ultimately women all over the world. The human capacity to survive is almost always spurred by one's belief in a better or higher result for themselves and others. I believed in freedom. The drums would not let me rest. Mama, don't you cook no more. You are free. You are free. Rooster, don't you crow no more. You are free. You are free. Old hen, don't you lay no more eggs. You are free. You are free.
Frederick Douglass, another legend, was the first great Negro speaker to advise President Abe Lincoln during the Civil War. Folks said he spoke too proper to have been a slave. Mama said when he came up with that newspaper, the North Star, certain peoples started talking.
June 18th, 1851. Let it be noted that I, Frederick Douglass, proposed to publish in Rochester a weekly anti-slavery paper entitled The North Star. The objective of the North Star will be to attack slavery in all of its forms and aspects, advocate universal emancipation, exalt the standard of racial morality, promote the moral and intellectual improvement of the colored people, and hasten the day of freedom for 3 million of our enslaved fellow countrymen. We propose that our new journal shall be quality and not inferior in appearance nor in reality to any weekly journal now published in the United States. We are aware of the boldness of this declaration, and considering our origin, our condition of early life, and our limited opportunities for education and mental improvement, this avowal may seem presumptuous. Nevertheless, we hope to make it good. It is aptly said that where there is a will, there's a way. And having the former, we shall not despair of having the latter. The time has come for united effort against the slave power of this country.
While Frederick was busy up north, Harriet Tubman was rising in the South. She herself escaped slavery in 1849 by way of the Underground Railroad, a series of houses, tunnels, and roads set up by white and black abolitionists and former slaves. They would use signal songs called spirituals to carry messages that the overseer could not understand.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. See that band all dressed in white. God's gonna trouble the water. It must be the band of the Israelite. God's gonna trouble the water. I said, wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. My God's gonna trouble the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
At age 20, I learned that me and my brothers were gonna be sold. I fled that night. And when I crossed the Mason-Dixon line, I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. The sun came like gold through the trees and over the field, and I felt like I was in heaven. And I knew right then I would spend the rest of my life helping other slaves escape to freedom. And I didn't give a hoot about that Fugitive Slave Act, which made it illegal to help runaway slaves. You see, God was greater to me than any of those congressmen in Washington. Now, the first time I went back to the South, I collected my sister and her children. And over the next 7 years, I had gone back 18 times and returned to the North with close to 300 slaves. I even helped my mother and my father find freedom. I led them right to Auburn, New York. Now, not all slaves wanted to go on to freedom. When things got rough and the slave catchers was hot on our trail, they wanted to turn around and go back to the master. They was acting just like the Hebrews, you know, when God and Moses led them out of Egypt. But God and Moses didn't let them turn around. And just like God, me and Sally wasn't gonna let nobody go back to being a slave. I'd take Sally out and I'd point her in their faces so they were staring down her barrel, and I'd simply say, go north or die. Where there's a will, there is a way. And wouldn't you know, they had a bounty on my head for $40,000. Then people was acting like I'd killed somebody. Now, I had reasoned this out in my mind. There was one or two things that I had a right to: liberty or death. And if I couldn't have one, I'd certainly have the other, for no man was going to take me alive. Frederick Douglass even wrote a tribute to me.
The midnight sky and the silent stars have been the witness of your devotion to freedom and your heroism. I know of no one who was willingly has encountered more perils and hardships to serve our enslaved people than you have.
I freed hundreds of slaves, and I would have freed hundreds more if they'd only know they were slaves. They just didn't understand. The drums would not let me rest. And besides, my steps was ordered by the Lord.
My steps have been ordered. My directions have been made plain. Every day of my life, I keep striving to do as the Lord commands while I'm on this Christian journey. Sometimes the road gets hard, but my steps have been ordered by the Lord. My steps have been ordered, my directions have been made plain. Every day of my life, I keep striving to do as the Lord commands while I'm on this Christian journey. Sometimes the road gets hard, but my steps have been ordered. Yes, my steps have been ordered. Oh, my steps have been ordered by the Lord.
After the Civil War, this nation had to endure 12 years of Reconstruction. Mama said it was a chance for the mothers and fathers to search for their children who had been sold. It was also the time for those of us in the South to pool our resources to buy land to build churches. We would have our own places to praise God, hold social gatherings, and have political meetings. Now, there were a lot of Negroes who began to speak out at those meetings, and Ida B. Wells spoke what was in her heart.
I was born into slavery in 1862. At 14, I became a teacher. I later continued my education at Fisk University. But one of my real trying times had nothing to do with academic education. One day, when I was 22, I sat in the white ladies only section of the railroad train because I was tired. When I refused to get up, the conductor grabbed my arm, so I bit him. It took 3 men to remove me from that train. Soon after that incident, I became part owner and editor of a Memphis weekly newspaper in which I attacked lynching. I wrote editorials demanding that the men who lynched my dear and close friend be arrested. When nothing was done, I advised African Americans to leave Memphis. There is but one thing left for us to do: leave a town which will neither protect our lives and property nor give us a fair trial, but take us out and murder us in cold blood. Well, the whites didn't too much appreciate my point of view, so they destroyed my printing press and threatened to hang me in front of the Memphis courthouse. I had to flee to Chicago for my own safety. Right then, I dedicated myself to the anti-lynching crusade. The drums would not let me rest.
During the time of Ida's protesting, I had married Albertus Bethune, who I met at church. He was also a teacher. A year later, we had a son, but shortly after that, I had this burning desire to start my own school. So in 1904, I packed my son and all our belongings and moved to Daytona Beach to open a school. It was a 2-story cottage and rented for $11 a month. Now, all I had to my name was $1.50, so I put it as a down payment. The school opened with 5 girls. Tuition was 50 cents a week. In less than 2 years, I had 250 pupils. Now, ain't my God good? Later, with a down payment of $5, I purchased what we called Hell's Hole because it was a nearby dump to build another school. James Gamble, son of one of the founders of Procter & Gamble, was one of my supporters. Now, it later became known as Bethune-Cookman College. You know, Booker T. Washington, who started Tuskegee Institute, and I often discuss our goals as educators. We knew that our students needed to be taught skills that would bring them some type of financial independence. We both realized that Negroes had so many, many different skills and talents, and music was one of them. The one thing we did to make it through the day was sing or listen to the blues. The blues developed from work songs in the fields and sometimes talked about loneliness or sorrow, but many times the blues reflected on our problems with humor. Then there was jazz, a combination of West African rhythms, European harmonies, and Negro American spiritual blues. One of the greatest jazz singers of all times was Lady Day, Miss Billie Holiday.
Them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose. So the Bible says, and it still is news. Your mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Money, you got lots of friends hanging around your door, but when it's gone and the spending ends, they don't come around no more. A rich relations give crust of bread and such. You can help yourself, but don't take too much. Your mama may have, Papa may have, But God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Not too many people know the history behind that song, but most all of my songs had meanings behind them. I protested the injustices through my music, and the injustice of the lynchings was one of them. I couldn't write a speech like Sojourner or write editorials like Ida B, but I could sing. And that's just what I did. Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves, blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar tree, pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia sweet and fresh, and then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rise, for the trees to dry. Here is a strange and bitter ride.
For many years, people knew very little about Negro history. In 1915, Carter G. Woodson founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. It was through this organization that February was chosen for Negro History Week, because the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass were in February. We now celebrate the entire month. Now, a few years after that declaration of our History Week, I was a target for the Klan because of my voter registration drive. Threats were made on my life, but I was determined never to give in. My motto: faith and courage, patience and fortitude. Make no apology to anyone because of color. When you see a burning cross, remember the Son of God who bore the heaviest cross of all. I vividly remember the day we went to vote. We arrived at 8 a.m. They kept us waiting all day, but we voted.
We've come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in his holy word. He's never failed me yet. Oh, can't turn around. We've come this far by faith. Oh, we've come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in his holy word. He's never failed us yet. Oh, can turn around. We've come this far by faith. We've come this far by faith.
Following World War I was the Harlem Renaissance. During this period, many Negroes left the South. They couldn't find jobs. Of course, many left for political reasons. Now, the most famous writer of the Harlem Renaissance was Langston Hughes. He made many, many contributions as a poet, playwright, and writer of fiction.
As long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a writer. But when I graduated from high school, I didn't have money to go to college. My father, who had moved to Mexico to find work, invited me to spend the summer with him to help earn money. You see, my father finished law school in this country, but was denied an opportunity to take the bar exam to practice law. The only place he could work was Mexico. So going to Mexico to work for the summer seemed like the perfect solution. While riding on the train to visit my daddy, I began thinking about the prejudice my father and other Negroes had suffered in this country. As the train crossed over the Mississippi River near St. Louis, I thought of the strength of my people that reached way back to Africa. I looked down at the muddy river and connected its strength with that of my ancestors. I took out my pen and began writing.
I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans. And I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers.
I've known rivers.
Ancient, dusky rivers.
Ancient, dusky rivers.
My soul has grown deep like the rivers.
And the drums would not let me rest.
In 1924, at age 27, this nation got a show enough blessing with Miss Marian Anderson. Oh, they tried to keep her down, but God just wouldn't let them.
Let us break bread together on our knees. Let us break bread together on our knees. As I fall on my knees with my face to the rising sun, oh Lord, have mercy on me. People told me I had a remarkable gift. I grew up with notes flying through the air. Daddy, he sang every morning. Mama, she hummed while she worked. And me and my sisters sang songs all the time. Church folk would often ask me to perform.
I remember one advertisement said, "Come, hear the baby contralto, 10 years old," and people came. Music would become my life, and I knew that I would one day go to music school. In 1915, at the age of 18, I went to a school and waited in line to fill out an application. I waited and waited and waited. Finally, I heard a voice resonate and say, "We don't take colored." I was devastated. But my mama said, "Where there's a will, there's a way." I stayed the course, enduring racism, hardships, and even moving overseas, a long way from home. And I made it. In fact, I made history. In 1939, I was invited to sing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on Easter Sunday. There was nowhere to go but up. And did I soar? After all, the drums would not let me rest. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Glory, hallelujah. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. Oh, Lord. Sometimes I'm level to the ground. Oh, Lord. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Glory, hallelujah.
Didn't we have some singers in all categories? People used to say that Thomas Dorsey created gospel music, that African-American music. It was religious music which united secular blues with a sacred text.
I was known as the father of gospel music, but I wasn't always in the church. I often played at after-hour parties, and they called me the whispering piano player because the police could never hear that there was a party going on. I performed with the best of people, Ma Rainey, Mahalia Jackson, you name it. I had faith, hope, courage, aspiration, and most of all, determination to accomplish something in life. My mother would often pray for me all the time. She so desperately wanted me to rededicate my life to Christ. And eventually, I did. In 1932, my wife and son died during childbirth. And in my grief, I sat down on my piano and I wrote this song. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home.
In 1935, I founded the National Council of Negro Women. The mission of this group was to advocate and empower women of African descent, their families and communities. Now, over many, many years, this organization grew to inspire and connect multitudes of women. Then the 50s began a new era for civil rights. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery, Alabama city bus to a white passenger. The bus driver ordered her to move, and when she refused, he had her arrested. Miss Parks' arrest began the Montgomery bus boycott and was one of the sparks for the civil rights movement.
Thank you, Sister Rosa. You are the spark. You started our freedom movement. Thank you, Sister Rosa Parks. Thank you, Sister Rosa. You are the spark. You started our freedom movement. Thank you, Sister Rosa Parks. We thank you, Sister Rosa Parks. Thank you, Sister Rosa Parks.
My name is Rosa Parks. I'm a seamstress in a large department store. Ooh, I'm tired because I've been on my feet all day just trying to earn some honest pay. My corns and bunions, they giving me fits. And on this seat, in this segregated bus, black section, is where I'm gonna sit. Now moving on down and along the road, the bus has picked up quite a load. There's barely standing room only. And now this here ignorant white man is being a pest. He demands that I stand so he can sit and rest. He say his skin color makes him the best. I tell him no. I am full up to here with this silly segregation mess, and in the black section too. Not for him am I gonna stand. And if it makes him happy, go ahead and call the man. Don't he know this section is black? If he had eyes, he'd see that's where I'm sitting at. Lord knows I don't want to lose my seat. I've been working hard all day. I got tired feet. I think I'm gonna stay. If you miss me at the back of the bus, come on over to the front of the bus. I'll be sitting over there. 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 Come on over to the front of the bus, 'cause I'll be sitting over there.
In 1962, Fannie Lou Hamer attended a meeting organized by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and learned that Black people actually had the right to vote. Following are excerpts from the speech she delivered on December 20th, 1964 at a rally in Harlem that was organized to support the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party's congressional challenge.
My name is Fannie Lou Hamer, and I exist at 626 Lafayette Street in Rouville, Mississippi. The reason I say exist is because we're excluded from everything in Mississippi but the tombs and the graves. That's why it's called that. Instead of the land of the free and the home of the brave, it's called in Mississippi the land of the tree and the home of the grave. What I'm trying to point out now is when you take a very close look at this American society, it's time to question these things. And you can hear a long sob story. You know it takes time. For 300 years, we've given them time. And I've been tired so long. Now, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And we want to change. We want to change in this American society because you see, we can no longer accept the facts and getting our children to sing, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed." What do we have to hail here? The truth is the only thing going to free us. And you know this whole society is sick. Yes, a lot of people are going to roll their eyes at me today. But you see, I'm going to tell it just like it is. You see, it's time. You see, this is what got all this like this. There's so much hypocrisy in this society. And if we want America to be a free society, we have to stop telling lies. That's all. I've gone to a lot of big cities, and I've got my first city to go to where a white man wasn't standing with his feet on a black man's neck. Just taking a chance on trying to register to vote, you can be fired. Not only fired, you can be killed. You know it's true because you know what happened to Schwerner, Goodman, and Cheney. It is my goal for the cause of giving those Negro children a decent education in the state of Mississippi and giving them something that they never had. Then I know my life won't be in vain. And it's time for every American to wake up now because the whole world is looking at this American society. Thank you.
No one person in the history of Black America has inspired a nation as did Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He has been one of the country's most dynamic leaders in the fight for equality for everybody. On August 28th, 1963, a massive civil rights demonstration was held in front of the Lincoln Memorial. A. Philip Randolph and Bayard Russin, the original planners of the march, had merely invited Dr. King to speak.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 5 score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who'd been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to their freedom. So I say to you today, my friends, that even though we must face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that down in Alabama with his vicious racists, with his governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, that right there in Alabama, little white boys and little white girls can join hands with little black boys and little black girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream that one day my 4 little children will not live in a nation where they will be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day the rough places shall be made plain, the crooked shall be made straight, and the glory of God shall be revealed for all flesh to see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith I go back to the South with. With this faith, we can hew from a mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we can pray together, march together, cry together, stand up for freedom together, knowing that one day we will be free. And if America is to become a great nation, it must become true. And if America is to become a great nation, it must become true. So let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heights and Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from every hill and every molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when we allow freedom to ring, that will speed up the day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Catholics and Protestants, will join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday.
We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, deep in our hearts, we do believe that we shall overcome someday. Oh, that we shall overcome someday.
In this post-aesthetic movement, African Americans are no longer allowing themselves to be defined by the world. We are constantly worshiping the God of our forefathers, praising him in song, dance, and poetry. Oh, we are truly somebody. Who are we? We are diamonds, the rubies, the sapphires, cut quality impacted by natural beauty, precious gems that are God's creation and certified for a lifetime. We are Madam C.J. Walker and Alice Walker and T-Bone Walker and all the brave soldiers that walked tenaciously across the Edmund Pettus Bridge with John Lewis and other folk who wanted this walk through life to be a bit easier for the next generation.
We know how to make something out of nothing and call it a masterpiece. We walk with coolness, call it swag. We know how to make rags out of riches and call them quilts.
We fall down, but we get up stronger, wiser, with power and determined purpose. Our lives matter from the back of the bus to the voting precincts, all the way to the White House.
We are the memories of your mother's life, conceiving life. We embrace your abundant gardens of a million summers. We are your blues moving in syncopated rhythms.
We celebrate our cultural heritage, our religion, food, music and art, dance and social customs. We honor our ancestors and those who make us who we are. We have a strong history to tell and traditions to keep. We enjoy our laughter and our smiles and hugs and family and being loved.
We celebrate and embrace our race, which is the human race. We care about our sick and want the best for our families.
We have dreams and hopes of dreams becoming reality. We often come together, sing together, and cry together. We laugh together and dance together and talk together and experience life.
Smart, not so smart. Big, tall, petite, and small, challenged physically, mentally, or brilliantly gifted. Conservative, liberal, or somewhere in between. Whether we like rock, country, reggae, R&B, jazz, classical, or folk, we are somebody. We are techies, doctors, lawyers, teachers, musicians, politicians, or even homeless. Blue collar, white collar, and collarless.
We are classy and sophisticated. We all have a human face. We should be patient, intolerant, and respectful, and serve each other with grace. Our souls and human spirits long to embrace. We all seek tranquility, serenity, harmony, and that produces unity.
I said, who can do it like we do it?
And still, I'm Sharon Moore, and we still hear the drums.
I'm Antoinette Johnson, and I still hear the drums.
I'm Glenna Brambill Williams, and I hear the drums.
I'm Yvonne Woodson. We still hear the drums.
My name is Hedwig Gale Rucker, and I hear those drums.
I am Sonia Stamper, and I embody every beat of the drums.
I am Yvette Glasto, and I still hear the drums.
Veronica Talton here, and I love to hear the drums.
Patrice Payne, and still we hear the drums.
Ty Garrett, and I dance to the drum.
Cheryl Scales. And yes, I hear the drums, baby.
Donna McCraney Kavanaugh, and I live inside those drums. Yeah.
Andrew Williams II, and I hear the drums.
Leon Beachman, and I feel the drums.
Jeff Jones, and I hear the drums.
Malcolm Lee Halcrone, and I am the drums.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious